one of the leading things going into this trip is I wanted to go on a backpacking trip again. I wanted to have a lighter weight pack. So I spent a lot of time choosing some gear to get lighter weight, and I got my pack down to probably around 60 pounds or so. And that's with the 8x10 camera, a Ritter camera, a new lightweight 300mm lens, but also with my 150 and my 600. And as you guys know, I skipped the backpacking trip at the beginning of this trip because the weather wasn't so good. And that turned out to be a very wise decision because when it's overcast like it is right now, you don't have really good light. And the area I was going to, you need to have some very, very clear skies in order to have some good reflected light. And also, I don't think I'd want to be there if it was raining heavily or snowing. That wouldn't have made it a very fun experience when the only shelter I got is a bivy sack. But the weather is going to be clearing out pretty soon. So on Tuesday, right now it's Sunday, but on Tuesday there's going to be some really clear skies. Wednesday, partially cloudy, but it'll be warming up, which is good, as this big swirling storm that has just kind of keep hitting us over and over again here, but as that kind of moves towards the east. So the plan is for tonight to be my last night at Capitol Reef, and then I am going to, very early tomorrow morning, drive over to Escalante area, drive to the trailhead, and start the backpacking trip. So I am pretty excited about that because those are some of my favorite places to go to, and love the sights and the sounds and the smells and everything of the area. So originally I was going to go to a canyon I haven't been to before, but I think I'm going to have a relatively narrow window for going on the backpacking trip. So I'm going to return to Neon Canyon and see about 2 subjects that I scouted out last year but wasn't able to shoot. So pretty excited about that, and hoping the weather holds out. And we'll see what happens later today, and if I have the opportunity to get that afternoon photo. But it's pretty cool. I'm the only one here right now wandering through Capitol Gorge, and it's a pretty cool place. So I want to show you something kind of cool here, a little bit of history. If you can see on the wall back behind me here, we got all kinds of writing, and it was dated August 17th, 1890. And this was written by some of the early Mormon pioneers that came through here as they were working their way west. And of course, before them, you had the Native Americans here that were here for a very, very long time. And you find some of their, artwork on some of the walls as well. And this is kind of tough to think of, people coming through here in covered wagons in the month of August. August is when you're going to have the strongest of the flash floods, and probably be 100 degrees, and then you have some crazy storms rolling through, sound of thunder echoing off the cliffs and floods raging through the canyon. So it's a heck of a lot easier driving through here with 4-wheel drive, air conditioning, and satellite radio. And the crows are perhaps making fun of me over there. But yeah, pretty cool. Actually some pretty impressive penmanship. I mean, if you look at right there, Rosetta White, that's pretty cool penmanship, I gotta say. But yeah, must have been pretty tough, traveling through these areas. But a little cool bit of history there. When I went on my first solo photography trip in 2009, it was because I had a permit to the Wave at Coyote Buttes North. It was in February, and I decided on the way through there just kind of stop through Zion and take a little break on Zion's east side. And there was a quarter I had sitting in the change tray of my 4Runner, and I decided I'm going to put this somewhere. I'm going to kind of hide it somewhere. And then when I come back through here again on the way back from this shooting trip, I'm going to pick up that quarter, and I don't know what that means, but I just thought it'd be kind of a cool thing to look forward to finding that quarter after going on this about week-long trip or so, and experiencing all that I experienced, and meanwhile just knowing that little quarter is going to be waiting for me. And it was kind of a fun thing to do, but I haven't really done it since then. But this past winter, when I was in Zion, I was walking along the Virgin River, and I saw stuck to a rock right on the edge of the river, there was a $5 bill. And so I picked up the $5 bill and started thinking to myself, maybe I'm not supposed to pick this up. Maybe this is supposed to, leave this here at Zion for one reason or another. And it's kind of a weird, irrational thought. Maybe this $5 bill is cursed or something like that. But I decided I'm going to take this $5 bill and I'm going to hide it somewhere. And on my way back through Zion again, I'm going to see if it's still there and then maybe hide it again and just kind of keep that $5 bill going for quite a while. And I mention this because as I was hiking out of the Capitol Gorge area on my trip, I decided I'm going to hide another $5 bill here in Capitol Reef. Sounds kind of silly, but I think it'll be kind of something neat to look forward to when I come back through here on a future trip. So I took the $5 bill and put it underneath a rock, and we'll see what happens when I come through here again. I don't know whether it's going to be a year from now or later this year or whenever that's going to be, but this is kind of a cool little thing to do. So after doing that, I decided to gather up my 8x10 gear and head over to a location that I had found yesterday. It seemed like it'd be a pretty interesting area. But when I got there, it was really cloudy. It was even just a little bit of rain was falling. And I got there relatively early too. And so I was waiting around. I found a composition that seemed like it would be pretty decent. And then I realized I hadn't had lunch yet. It's kind of a weird thing, but maybe because it was cloudy, I kind of lost track of what time it was. So I left my camera there. I hiked all the way back to my truck, made myself some lunch, and then went back to the camera again. And so I'm going to leave you today with a little video I did while I was in that location in the late afternoon when I took a few photos. So hope you enjoy. So I've made my 3 exposures of the scene that you see behind me here. And I just wanted to talk a little bit through the thought process I have going on right now. I think I might have had my best window of light for this scene, because I don't necessarily know that I want to have this at the really warm sunset sort of light, because I really like the way that the sort of white sandstone looks with the blue sky and then the sort of the golden yellow grass. It has kind of a nice look to it, and also the clouds were a little bit stronger earlier. But I do have one more sheet of Velvia 50 left, and we'll see. But it was definitely pretty strong looking a little bit earlier. As far as the camera itself, I have my normal lens on there, which is a 300mm lens. I'm not doing any movements at all. I don't have very much grass in the foreground. So the technique that I did is I focused on the midground, which is where sort of the junipers and the little pine trees and stuff, those bushes just on the other side of the grass. So I focused over there and I stopped it down to f/45, and it looked like I was getting enough of the foreground in focus, and also looked like the background was pretty well in focus. If I did any front tilt, then I start having problems where maybe I don't get all the clouds in the sky, or I have to choose between getting the tops of the mountains there or kind of losing the midground, the area kind of in shadow just beyond the junipers. So I figured just stop down a ways. I'm focused quite a ways away, so nothing really fancy as far as movements or anything. I don't have any filters on the camera at the moment, though I did say earlier I had 2 exposures with a polarizer and then one without. I've just learned that polarizers sometimes don't do good things to the skies, especially with Velvia. So it'd be nice to at least have the option of having it both ways. But I'm just going to relax here, enjoy my final sunset here in Capitol Reef, and start thinking about getting everything packed up for the backpacking trip tomorrow morning. But all this blue sky is pretty nice, and I'll give a little bit of a 360. I know that sometimes this can be a little disorienting, but just so you can kind of see what all is going on here. Very, very beautiful scene, and I'm definitely glad I had the opportunity to spend as much time here in Capitol Reef as I did, because it's a really cool place, and I think it'll be really fun to continue to explore it in the many years to come. But pretty awesome place, that's for sure.
The photos I took that afternoon were mediocre at best, but I knew that'd be the case. When I stumbled upon the scene yesterday, dramatic clouds filled the sky. That would have made for a great subject, but today, the sky was rather bland. And truth be told, I wasn't exactly motivated to stay through evening light. I was tired from a long day and needed to pack my gear for my backpacking trip early the next morning.
If you love this content and want to help support my journey, you can do so by subscribing to my YouTube channel, telling a friend, or sending a voluntary contribution of just $24 a year with PayPal or Patreon, and depend on the generous support of people like you to produce this ad-free content. For more information on how to support me, please visit the donations section of my website. Thanks in advance for your support.